So I was making a gift for a friend of my daughter's and I found this adorable frame at a garage sale. I just thought the flowers were so pretty on it. And I took it apart and then I painted it with spray paint. And this was a primer and paint in one. And it did take just one coat. And then I went ahead and used the Dixie Belle Clear Coat Satin after it had dried to seal the paint. So my daughter's friend Kathy is having a baby shower. She's going to be having a baby soon. And my daughter sent me this picture of how they have the baby's room decorated. And I noticed the Beatrix Potter, Peter Rabbit pictures up at on the wall. And I thought maybe I could make her something with Beatrix Potter picture. So I searched around on Etsy and I found a print and I thought it was real cute. Now, why this person can sell it or what gives them the right to sell it, I have no clue, but I went ahead and bought a print of it. And actually, you got 3 different sizes, and I printed it out. So I recently got a Cricut machine, and I printed out the baby's name with the Cricut machine, and I went ahead and I put it on the glass. Now, if you do not have a Cricut, you can, of course, freehand it, which I could never do, or you could go ahead and print it out on a regular piece of paper, tape it to the back, and then use your markers, your oil-based markers, and trace it out. And it would look real pretty. It would look like just like it was stenciled on. Anyway, I went ahead and I adhered this to the glass and checked to make sure the picture would still fit on there. Then I went ahead and I had to take all the tape off the back because I had protected the back of it from the spray paint. And then I took Elmer's glue and I put it around the perimeter of the back of the frame where the glass would sit. Then I replaced the glass and I took Elmer's glue one more time and put it around the perimeter. Now this serves 2 purposes. It helps to hold the glass in place and it also helps to prevent resin leaks when you use resin on the other side. It needs to dry overnight and sometimes up to 24 hours depending on how much glue you use. Once that had dried, I cut out my little print there and I taped it to the back of the glass to use as a template to put my glass on top of. Next, I took clear Elmer's glue and started outlining the bunny, including all of her little jacket and her hands. And then I took a 2mm rhinestone chain that I had picked up on Amazon and I put it around all of the areas that I had put the clear Elmer's glue. I started with the bottom of the body, did the feet, and then went up and did the head and the ears. So I had been getting all of these rhinestone chains and still have quite a few left from that I had purchased on Amazon, but I'm finding that a website called TEMU also carries the rhinestone chains. They're a little bit smaller for the most part than the other, but they seem to be the same quality as the ones that we picked up on Amazon, only they're less expensive. Everything I use in this video I will link under the description. So when I was done putting all the rhinestone chains on, I started putting the glass on. So this pink glass that I'm putting on for the jacket is actually crushed glass from Michaels. And it is on sale right now at Michaels for 50% off. They have all sorts of crushed glass there at different times of the year, and it quickly goes on sale. It's all seasonal, but they do always have the silver reflective glass that can be dyed with the different spray paints or with the alcohol inks, depending on which you like best to use. So here I'm using a couple of the different colors. The center part that's on the bunny's belly is the silver reflective glass that they have all the time at Michaels. And then you'll see some kind of goldish, yellowish glass there that was out around Christmas time. I'm hoping they come out with it again this Christmas because it kind of looks gold to me. And I've used it in a lot of my projects. So like I said, all of this glass is from Michaels. And if you can't find the color you want, you can always dye it. So next I put another little rhinestone chain to make a V by his nose there. And here I have a couple small plastic beads that I actually popped out of some existing old jewelry. And they're clear, and I took the oil-based black Sharpie marker and kind of colored around it to make an eye and left the very top part of it clear. Made a round pupil at the bottom and then left the top clear and kept it on that tape to dry. It's easier if you put it on the tape instead of having to hold it with your fingers while you're painting it. After I put the eyes on, I went ahead and I filled in the rest of the bunny's face, and then I started doing her hands and her chest area. So next I cleaned the glass up and then used a silver permanent Sharpie oil-based marker and drew the little whiskers. I don't know if you had seen on the piece of paper, but she had some real fine little whiskers, and I just put those on. And it's important to use the oil-based, and if you make a mistake, you can take it right off with a razor. It comes off real easy. So at this point, this is what it looks like. I found another piece of pink glass for its nose to make its nose stick out a little more. And then I started taking these little pink pieces of glass. This is glass I've picked up at thrift stores, in garage sales, broken up and tumbled in my tumbler. And so I made two flowers, excuse me, two flowers on one side, one flower on the other side, and I put a little gold bead in between. I kind of messed with it for a little while before I made my final decision on what I wanted to do. And then I started messing around with putting stems on it. Used VITRIGRAPH glass for the stems, and it finally ended up transitioning from 3 fat stems to 3 skinny stems with a little bit of green crushed glass right under her feet. And I thought this was the final product. I thought it looked cute. So now it's ready for resin. So the resin I'm using for this project is the DICTION resin. It's the 4-hour demold, 24-hour cure. I really like it for molds and for glass, but do not use it on canvas. It causes fish eyes. So you would think after 4 hours you would be able to touch it, but it really takes closer to 7 or 8 hours before I would really touch it, or it may leave fingerprints. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio resin that you mix slowly in a cup, scraping the sides, scraping the bottom, mixing it slowly to hopefully prevent bubbles. And you do this for about 3 minutes. The main reason I started using this resin was because it was less likely to yellow compared to some of the other resins, especially the art resin. When I pour resin, I usually pour it or drizzle it over the glass first and then up around the sides and into the corners. And I usually use a spoon or a little silicone tool to push it around and make sure everything's covered. On any of the resin sites, you should have a calculator that tells you how much resin you use according to the size of your project. And I always end up using a little bit more because you have to keep in mind that the amount that they give you does not take into account that you are pouring it over glass also. Now you'll notice in this that I am drizzling it around the flowers because the flowers are a very light pink. And when you use translucent glass to begin with, or the faux sea glass, it's translucent as it is. And when you pour resin over translucent glass, it becomes lighter. And sometimes it can disappear into the background. So I just put the resin around the flowers, not on top of it. So I only do that on the very light colors like the light pinks and maybe light yellows, but the darker blues and reds, you can pour the resin right on and you can see it just fine. So if you wait a few minutes and then come back, a lot of times the bubbles will rise to the top and they'll be easier to get rid of. And also a lot of times if there's a little hair or something in it, that will also rise to the top, and it's easier to see and easier to get rid of. So like I said, I come back about every 10 minutes, 2 or 3 times, use the torch again, and look for sediment or anything else that might be in it. And this was the baby shower. This was my daughter with her friend Kathy. And then here's the only picture I got of her holding it. And then, of course, she sent me a picture where she hung it on the wall after she got home. So this is actually the only final picture that I have of it because I forgot to take a final picture of it. Usually I do it in front of the camera and do a little video talking about it, but I totally forgot all about it. But here it is. Turned out real cute.